This block here was horrible. We have a different solution. The contrast to see how when their development does their total gut, why you want to do a total gut. The historic buildings in West Baltimore, Great Friday. How's everyone doing? Welcome to the King Connections podcast. I'm your host, King, and I'm excited to have on the King Connections podcast today another great impact investor, someone who is a conscious leader, someone who cares about moving the needle forward with concerns of helping businesses that have an impact, whether social or societal, to achieve their dream and their higher purpose by providing capital funds for them. So without any further ado, I want to introduce you to today's guest, Katharine Hersh. Welcome to the show today, Katharine. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks so much for having me, King.
Thank you for being here. One of the questions I like to get started with to kind of really set the context and really help shape, I would say, frame today's discussion is, what would you say is your spiritual energy number, from a number being from 0 being life sucks to 10 being life is awesome? Just right in the moment, what would you say you currently are right this moment?
I would say today I'm probably a 10.
Excellent. Thank you for indulging me. The reason I asked that question is what I've learned from doing previous podcasts, as well as meetings that I have, or even events, that people in the audience that are listening, what I realize, if people are 5 or below, they're either going to be not engaged, they're going to be tuned out, they're not going to be present, they're going to be looking at their watch, and it's just not going to be a very good meeting, session, or podcast. But anyone who's 7 or above, that they're going to be present, they're going to be engaged, and then, we can have a wonderful podcast. So thank you for being at 10. Again, thank you for your investment, time, and energy, and being present. Truly appreciate that. Now, to begin things started, one of my favorite questions I always like to ask folks that I've come across on LinkedIn, like yourself, who are in the space of either social entrepreneurship or impact investing, is, what do you see as your purpose in life?
Yeah, for me, my purpose is really to use finance as a tool for positive social and environmental impact and change, and to repair natural and human systems instead of extracting and depleting them. I've spent my entire career in corporate finance and investing, and I've seen how it really is a tool that can be used for good and for bad. And so harnessing it to drive positive impact is what I see as my purpose. On a personal level, I'm really deeply motivated by the principle of tikkun olam, which I think I had shared about with you before when we spoke. It translates roughly to repair the world. So again, connecting back to that, that professional purpose and drive to use finance as a tool for positive change, but personally as well, in interpersonal relationships, how we make repair with one another, and then also kind of the societal of how can we make sure our efforts are generating positive impact.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. One of the other questions that I like to ask is that, across this, I would say in today's society, we hear this term thrown out quite a bit: conscious leader, conscious capitalism, conscious, etc. And what I've learned is that depending on what group you're talking to, that conscious definition can mean different things. People can mean conscious being environmentally conscious. They can say that being societal conscious. And so I'm always curious to hear from a person who I believe exhibits the behaviors, characteristics of a conscious leader, how they would define themselves. So how would you define a conscious leader?
I think it's about self-awareness, about what motivates you and also what motivates other people. as well as an understanding of how one's own behaviors impact others. And so that's more general than, environmental consciousness or social consciousness, but it comes down to that level of awareness that we react to the world and to experiences in different ways, and then that impacts other people. So in my experience with conscious leaders, I think that's something that I see. I think it's also connected to a sense of like a growth mindset and the ability to cultivate growth and change, not only in yourself, but in others. To support others as they develop on whatever pathway they're walking, and to hold kind of an inclusive mindset instead of being ego-driven or me first. That consciousness, that self-awareness allows you to experience other people, their concerns, their priorities, and understand what motivates them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love your definition, your perspective on that. As you talk about growth mindset, you talk about conscious mindset, I think that one other element or behavior characteristic I like to say that is a kind of aligned with this line of thinking is also having a grateful mentality, having a gratitude attitude, so to speak. And I'm always, when people I'm connecting with, this is one of the questions I always ask them: what are you grateful for? Because to me, if a person doesn't have that kind of mentality, that's a red flag that we're not going to be aligned on things, even though we may have a lot of things in common, but our more intrinsic values won't be there if they have success in their life and they can't find things to be grateful for. So within that context, what would you say you're most grateful for from all this accomplishments you've achieved in your life, successes you've seen in personal and business? What would you say you're most grateful for?
I am most grateful for my family and my friends, my health, and the ability to do meaningful work. I think the success is less meaningful than the ability to keep coming back and contributing for me.
Excellent, excellent. Now, as a connector myself, I'm always, and I'm a system engineer, so my background, and I'm a very logical thinker, is I believe it's a process and a methodology for how you go about building relationships with people, connecting with individuals, and then more importantly, cultivating those relationships, particularly when you're meeting folks from online who you don't have a direct referral from. And so I look for behavior traits that a person exhibits that help me determine whether do I want to connect with this person, do I want to, or build further, so on and so forth. So I'm curious to know, what are 3 behavior traits that you possess that you would say best describe who you are?
Yeah, I would say my top 3 are collaboration, creativity, and grit. Collaboration, I think I'm oriented towards finding solutions that work for the good of the team. I really have like a team first mentality. Again, it's that inclusive orientation, incorporating perspectives from others, particularly those who have not always had a seat at the table. Like finance in particular has been a very exclusive industry. And so I think having a collaborative mindset is a key behavior trait for me. On creativity, the ability to think outside the box and find solutions that work instead of being hemmed in by this is how things have always been done. I think if you're looking to drive change, you can't rely on the systems that have gotten us to where we are always. Obviously, there's tools that are helpful, but being able to think outside the box and being more focused on finding what works as opposed to what worked in the past. And then the last one is grit. I think, there's just persistence and determination required in doing this work because it's not easy. And creating change does not happen overnight and it's a long game. So there's a little bit of stamina and staying in there for the long haul. And I'm just driven to work really hard for the things and the people that I care about. So collaboration, creativity, and grit.
Excellent. Now, I want to kind of shift my next line of questioning to your business and get a better understanding of the company you work with. So this question is going to be really centered on what inspired you to, and it's a 2-part question actually, not only what inspired you to be a part of the Builders Fund, but what is also the mission of the Builders Fund as well?
Yeah, so the Builders Fund, we're a growth stage private equity fund focused on partnering with businesses whose core business model generates social and environmental benefit. So these are generally companies that have been established for some period of time and are looking for a financial partner to help them scale. What inspires me most about what we do at Builders is that partnership aspect of working with companies who have deeply embedded purpose in their business model, are desiring to create impact alongside creating sustainable, durable businesses. And I just find that those people and those companies give me so much energy, and it is my deep pleasure to find ways to support them both financially and operationally and make sure they have the resources that they need in order to unlock the next stage of growth. So, I think it's easier maybe to understand what this looks like in examples. I'm on the board of a company called Acelero Learning, which is an early childhood education company. They are focused on delivering better outcomes for all kids and families with a particular focus on Head Start, so most marginalized communities, disproportionately Black and Brown and low income. And they found a way to do this at scale. They're a national player. And so what we've done at Builders is we're a financial partner to them. We serve on the board. We help advise on strategy and basically figure out how can they further their impact and their reach and help more kids and families to drive outcomes. So I obviously get a lot of energy. I'm very passionate about the companies that we work with and how we can support them in scaling.
Excellent. And thank you for sharing an example as well, because I love the mission that you're doing, and I love the passion that you bring. So I can talk about, I can look at, and I feel your energy as you talk about that, and I see that it's sincere and it's authentic. I think that's very important. Now, I think a key question as relates to most people don't know how to negotiate, and let alone negotiate when we're talking about multi-million-dollar type of transactions because of either fear of not having the right leverage, concerns about competence, etc. You've obviously done it on multiple transactions. So I'm curious to know from your success and your perspective, would you be willing to share with us what are three to four keys you have that you would suggest this is how you negotiate multi-million-dollar transactions?
One thing I've found is that finance is far more about people than spreadsheets. And so understanding the people that are on the other side of the table with you, in my experience, is the most important thing to successfully negotiating a transaction. So it comes back again to this conscious leadership about understanding what motivates people and what they want. So I think, for instance, oftentimes when you're in a negotiation, someone will state a position like, I want X amount of money or these terms. But if you go beyond the position and understand why, so what is the interest behind the position, I often find that allows you to be creative to find a solution that allows, both parties to get their needs met without anchoring on just, one particular term. And then the other thing I would just say is staying at the table. In negotiations I've seen fall apart, it's when people walk away or when there's a lack of interest in the person across the table. And so being able to come back with clean energy and really engage and stay at the table and be focused on driving towards, a collaborative outcome. That's one of the things that I've seen be really important for successful transactions.
Excellent. Now, also in my line of work as a connector, I call myself a tribe builder. When people build connection to different tribes, what I look for is individuals who love to collaborate. Like my 3 core mantras is connect, engage, and co-create. Because I believe if you're not willing to do those 3 things, then more likely I won't be of much value to you, and then you won't be much value to the people I'm building with as well. So with that being said, and I kind of think I already know the answer, but I definitely look forward to hear you talk about the answer. What are your thoughts about co-creating with others to achieve your higher purpose?
Well, obviously, it's something I really value if collaboration is a key behavior and value of mine. But I think, what I've observed in some of the portfolio companies we've invested in, and these companies that are driving impact and social and environmental change, is that purpose can be an incredibly powerful motivating force. And it's particularly potent when it's amplified and shared among a team. So of course, we started the conversation with you asking me what's my personal purpose. It's great if I want to use finance as a tool for change, but I'm not really going to change much just by myself unless I'm acting through a system and in concert with other people to co-create that change. So I think, using purpose to amplify and motivate the culture of a company, of a system, an organization, it can be incredibly powerful and ultimately driving the outcomes we're all looking for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you talked about personal growth, and that's another key characteristic I look for in individuals as well, folks who consistently look to grow. Like my personal quest that I pray for on a daily basis is to be a better listener, a better thinker, a better server, a better giver tomorrow than I was today. And I put myself through personal development, reading books, connecting with other leaders to help myself grow. So within that context, is there one thing that you can share with us that you learned this year that you would say, this has helped me become a better person as a result of this new information, new resource, et cetera?
I think honestly, candid feedback from people that I trust. So someone telling me, hey, in this situation, you were really effective. That worked really well. And then, counter to that, having someone kind of check me and say, hey, you actually overstepped in this situation. And, you weren't conscious of how you were impacting other people, or your energy was too strong. I think those moments of really candid feedback from people that you trust. And then what that teaches you is how to be vulnerable and receive it and not get defensive, right? But I think the biggest things that I've learned this year have been in those moments of candor and trust from folks, just giving me that kind of touch point on how I'm being received.
Excellent. Now, shifting back now more to your personal life, and it could be your business as well. If it's the answer kind of dips into that, and maybe a combination of both. But what do you do in life that helps bring you fulfillment?
I think for me, it's all about quality time with my family and friends, good food. I love to cook and eat fresh food, and then time spent being active and outdoors with my dog or in nature. These are all the things that bring me fulfillment. They, connect me to other people. They get me outside myself. They get me away from a screen. As amazing as screens are for connecting us, I think that real-time interpersonal and outdoor time is really, really valuable to me.
So I'm just curious, you mentioned having a dog. What kind of dog do you have?
I have a rescue. He is 13 years old. He's a poodle, mutt, kind of schnauzer mix.
And do you find yourself, because folks say that, and I have a dog, that's why I'm asking this question, and I can understand and relate to it much better because this is my first time having a dog in my life, and I've done a lot of research and studying on how to be a better owner and how to understand the dog's behavior so I can be a better owner in that context. So I kind of want to throw this question in there now. With that being said, what would you say being an owner of a rescue dog has done for you from a fulfillment standpoint?
Well, first of all, it's taught me patience. I think there's so much about my dog's life that I don't know about, the trauma that he went through before we adopted him. And so it's taught me patience and trying to understand and have empathy for that. And then the fulfillment has really come just through the immense love that I've received through this animal. I think dogs are so incredible in the affection that they can offer and their loyalty, and how attuned they are to you. like on the level of if you're having a bad day or feeling sick, the dog will come, press up against you. And just that level of like another being expressing care and being so tuned into you, it's so fulfilling. It's one of the most magical things.
Absolutely. I'm learning that as well. So thank you for sharing that.
What kind of dog do you have, King?
I have a German Shepherd Rottweiler mix.
Amazing.
And she was a rescue as well. So she's 1 year old, beautiful, sweet dog. To your point, what I'm surprised at is the dog's level of intelligence. I got one of those owners who, my dog, I believe, has to work for her food, because if I don't work her that way, she's gonna have too much energy and be too riled up. And so I come up with different creative ways every day to make her work for her food, from putting it in different traffic cones and how she's able to find it, smell it, figure out the little puzzles I create to get to her food. It's a daily challenge for me, and it's something I look forward to, and I think she looks forward to as well. So definitely enjoy being an owner.
That's amazing.
Now, what I've learned from my study in personal growth is that we as human beings, we make about anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 decisions a day, depending on what we do as a profession and how we live our lives. And then, of course, over 1 million per lifetime. Is there one decision that you would say that you made in your life that has made the most significant meaning for you?
This is probably a theme in what I've been saying, but it comes down to people for me. So probably the biggest decision is my life partner. The person I've chosen to spend my life with. And I think my ability to take risks, to grow, to, pursue things that I'm passionate about, to find fulfillment and meaning has been extremely dependent on finding that person. So very grateful to my partner. And I think that's the most fundamental decision that I've made.
Excellent. Now, when it comes to building connections, and I asked this question a little bit about behavior traits, now I kind of want to shift to characteristics. I look for what I call 8 key characteristics that I look for in an individual. Not that they must have all 8. I look for 3. Give you an example. 3 that I believe they must have. We spoke of one already, growth-minded. Number 2, being a person who's principle-centered. And number 3, being a person who believes in creating value. To me, those 3 of the 8 are the key that I'll look for in any connection I'm building. And so I'm curious to know, do you have such a similar vetting process? And if so, what are some of the key characteristics you look for in establishing a new connection?
Reciprocity is really important to me. That if I'm connecting with someone, I'm putting energy into it, and they're also kind of reciprocating in their intent. So I think that's something that I screen for, and thinking about connections and new relationships is this going to be a reciprocal relationship? Authenticity is also really important to me. I feel like life is too short to, try to figure out who the person beneath the person is. And so I really value people who are able to be clear and stand up for who they are and just kind of live into that identity. And I think similarly, like integrity, if someone says they will do something, that they then, hold to their word, that's also really important to me. But probably reciprocity is the kind of the very first thing for me of, if I'm going to put energy into this, will it be received and then offered back?
Okay. Now, in order to do these higher purpose type activities that we do, particularly when it's societal or even environmental, the task is always greater than what we can do alone. And it's important to build strategic alliances with others to help us kind of meet these goals. So I'm curious to know, and along this is also a question I'm always asking, because this is a service I provide for my clients. It's helping them to figure out who will be a great strategic partner for them, and how to go about making a connection to those individuals. So with that being said, who would be a great strategic partner for you?
think there's probably three categories as I think about different partners. One is companies that are looking for an authentic partnership to grow their business and their impact. Ultimately, I can't do what I do without the great companies out there doing the work. And so other companies like Acelero Learning or Posigen Solar, another company in our portfolio, growth stage businesses that are looking for a financing partner and who are open to that kind of interaction. I'm always looking for new relationships there. The second bucket is probably investors. So the Builders Fund we are a fund. We raise money from outside investors, including, institutionals, families, foundations, endowments, but investors who want to get involved in supporting and building meaningful companies, and who are kind of aligned with our purpose of using capital as a force for good. We're always looking for investors who want to come along that ride with us. And then I'd say the third and final bucket is just anyone who's focused on building the impact investing ecosystem. It is much broader than any one person or fund. And so we're all dependent on each other. And whether it's earlier stage investors who are providing capital to companies that are just getting off the ground so that they can then grow and scale and ultimately be a fit for the Builders Fund, or bankers or advisors or folks who are thinking about how to measure and manage impact. It is a whole ecosystem. And so I'm always interested in contributing to those conversations about how can we better support the companies that are doing the work to build more inclusive capitalism.
Excellent. Now, going back to a personal question for you, and this question, I think it's really going to help our listeners really kind of get a better understanding of how you go about managing energy. Because what I've learned through my years is that it's not so much about managing time. I think that's a misnomer. I think life really is about managing energy and how that flows in and out of your life. And when I meet people like yourself who has a high level of positive energy, I'm always curious to know, what do you do to kind of get yourself up for that? Like I don't wake up by myself. I don't wake up at 10. I have to get myself in a 10 mindset and go through a process and some rituals to become a 10. Because as you know, the way life comes at us now with the media's job is to make us feel negative by constantly bombarding us with negative information, whether it's based off politics that we kind of see, the divisiveness today's world, all those things, murder, crime. How are you able to tune those things out, stay positive, stay focused on your purpose in life, and engage with people so you can always bring out the best in them and be at that level? So within that context, what are some of your morning rituals that you have in place that you want to share with us that kind of get you and help you build that wall up against the nonsense out there?
Yeah, I am a morning person, so I definitely have morning rituals. I have a meditation practice. I've had it for probably about 20 years, and I find that is a really grounding way for me to begin the day with breathing and intention. And the second is walking my dog. So back to what fulfills me is being outside. And so getting outside first thing in the morning, experiencing the sunshine, the fresh air, being with the dog, that really helps me, kind of grounds me and girds me to go into the world that we're inundated with. And then the last thing is breakfast is my favorite meal of the day. I love breakfast. I could eat breakfast food any time of the day. So I always eat a good breakfast, and then I feel much better and I got good energy for the rest of the day.
Excellent. Now, one of the things that I want to ask you now is a question that really stems from what I've learned as a system engineer connector. I've learned that when you look at connecting with people who you're aligned with and not necessarily what you have in common. I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. Like, for example, I live in Baltimore City. Obviously, I'm a Black gentleman in my 50s. my neighbor and one of the communities I develop in, I buy on blocks that are predominantly in the Black community because of the blight and issues. My neighbor is Black, and he may be a Black man in his 50s, and he may, because of our um, cultural givens as we was growing up, may like the same music, may like the same food, may like the sports. Those are things we have in common. But when it comes down to our passion in life, our principles, our purpose, we may not have any of the things in alignment. And so with that being said, I look to connect with people who I have things more in line with. And I figured out a process that when you see someone who you admire, whether, like I said, they're financially successful, their career successful, they're an entertainer, if you see that person and you say, I would love to meet this person, not as a fan, not someone that just say, yeah, I just want to meet this person and get their autograph, but someone that you felt that if I were able to connect with this individual, we can co-create and do greater things because of their level of success, experience in life. We can do more things if we were to connect, because I figure out a process how you can connect with these individuals. And I go about navigating that process for a lot of my clients. Now, I call these individuals who are someone that you brought them into your network and they were able to make you an inner part of their network. It would give you exponential growth because of their social capital, because of their influence, because of their experience. So for me, an example would be Magic Johnson. It's not because he's a successful NBA player. I actually didn't really like Magic Johnson as an NBA player. I did admire him, but I was a Pistons fan, so I didn't really root for him. But as post-basketball, his career as a community builder, he's a mentor, he's a developer, he's a giver, he's a server. So for me, I would love to connect and build with him on that level. So I'm curious now, within that larger context, who would you say would be a great kin connection for you to build with? And it can be multiple people, it can be anybody, but I'm just curious because it tells me a lot about a person based on who they admire, who they would love to work with.
It's such a good question. And sometimes it's hard to think in that blank check kind of way, right?
Right.
Of who would most accelerate what you want to be doing. I think for me, the first thing that comes to mind is like successful entrepreneurs or people who've been able to accumulate capital and are now thinking about how to use it for good. So, this is just one example, but someone like Mackenzie Scott, who's giving away a huge amount of the capital that she's been accumulating. And I would love to connect with someone like that to understand, like, how do you think about doing that? Are there ways that we can accelerate that? And not just through philanthropy, but through investing in businesses that are sustainable and can grow. So that's the first thing that comes to mind. And then, I think that the policy angle is so important. So, what's going on in government and kind of the regulations that are supporting both, the clean energy transition, but also like education. So the opportunity to sit down with somebody like Jigar Shah, who's running the loan programs office, and really understand what are the companies that you're looking to accelerate. What are the opportunities you see to create positive change here? Someone who has that systems level view, I think that is really interesting to me.
Excellent answer. Definitely. So now we reach the last question that I want to ask. And again, for me, this question is a great question to ask to learn a lot about a person as well based on their answer. Because everything about learning for me is about data. I'm a data gatherer, data analyzer, and this whole conversation has been about, obviously, acquiring data, not for my own selfish purposes, but for a listening audience to really understand what the process is, get a better understanding of who you are. And I think this is what helps people determine whether or not I would love to connect with the individual. This is someone I would love to have a conversation with based on the answers you've given and based on how you've given those answers, your authenticity and your energy around it. So now, with that being said, is there a book that you would recommend? And I know it may be very difficult to find one book, and you can do multiple books if you really feel inclined, that you feel that you would tell someone, here's a book you have to read. Because this book is definitely going to be influential. It's been influential to me, and I highly recommend it. If you have to read one book in your life, nobody should just read one book, but this book, it should be a book that you definitely should add to your list.
I have two. It's hard for me to just choose one, but I've got two that sit near my desk that I can recommend that I think would be interesting to your audience because they resonate with a lot of the themes we've been talking about. One is a book called Buddhist Economics.
Yeah.
It is by Claire Brown, who is a professor at UC Berkeley. And the premise of the book is that traditional economics measures the ways in which we spend our income, but it doesn't attribute worth to the crucial human interactions that ultimately give our lives meaning. So like everything we've been talking about today. This is just a really short, sweet, provocative book that I think helps ask the questions that we need to be asking. And it's, again, kind of a creative reframing of economics. So that's one. And then my second is a book called Leading from the Roots. By Kathleen Allen. And it is a way of thinking about organizations as living systems versus kind of the command and control top-down management style. And it draws inspiration from trees and forests and natural systems and how these systems self-organize and have an incredible intelligence and ultimately create and generate. And it provides some really useful kind of leadership frameworks about how to unleash energy and innovation and create effective teams. So these are two that sit near my desk and I would recommend to your audience.
Excellent. I haven't heard of either of those books, but your descriptions and the titles are definitely books I want to pick up and add to my list because, again, I'm in alignment with both of those messages and summaries that you talk about in those books, and I love to learn. I look forward to reading those books as well. Thank you for sharing. So I'm curious, now since we reached the end of the interview, would you be interested in sharing any contact information with our group as far as how they can get in touch with you if anybody has questions or concerns? And then lastly, any closing thoughts you'd love to share as well?
Yes, I'm very happy to connect. If there's anything I've said that's interesting to folks in your audience, others who are in the impact investing industry or social entrepreneurs, would love to connect. Probably the best way to reach me is I'm on Twitter. My handle is @branchbybranch. Very inspired by leading from the roots. You can also find me on LinkedIn. It's Katharine Hersh and the Builders Fund, but would love to be in touch with anybody. And King, I just want to say thank you for having me on and for creating this space and the time to have these meaningful conversations around what spiritual capitalism looks like and conscious leadership. It's really a pleasure to be able to reflect on the work that we do every day and to connect with like-minded folks.
Well, thank you. Again, I definitely appreciate as I said earlier, your investment time and energy, and the fact that you are living the life that you are. It just continues to inspire me to live the life I'm living and connect with individuals, and then help you connect with those individuals to help you live your higher purpose. So again, thank you. I want you to have a wonderful weekend, and it's just really been a pleasure. And if you can stay 1 minute or so after our show ends, I have a few other questions I want to ask, but I want to thank our listening audience who listened to another episode of the King Connections podcast. When you listen to this live or you listen to it on a replay, engage with us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and let us know your thoughts so that we can build better questions for our guests. Thank you all.